Hi, you have landed on this video because you're ready to learn something new in construction management. My name is Rick, and I'm going to take you on a short tour of model cost estimating. As an owner and senior estimator at Construction Technology Network, I was looking for a way to give my clients a more precise way to price out a project for an owner and potential customer, something that would be more understandable than unit cost estimating. Traditional cost estimating takes place once an architect hands me a set of drawings. Modeling takes place before the set of drawings. Planning takes place after the owner has given an architect his conceptual ideas of his needs. The architect produces a program design. The owner really wants to know how much of his design dream will he get for his money. The program or preliminary design scopes out the needs of the owner. This is the basis for the cost estimate. Now here comes the reason you are here. The architect really doesn't know at this point how much the building is going to cost. How can the architect at this point sell his company to the owner? The way he sells his company to the owner is to have CTN produce a model cost estimate. The architect sits down with the owner and goes over his program using the model cost estimate. He also uses the cost estimate to explain assumptions and answers to questions that drove the cost estimate. The most important information the owner needs is, what is the cost of your design, or what is my building going to cost based upon your design? Is everything I need in your design, and can I afford to build it? You might tell your client, based on our program model cost estimate, we calculated out the cost. This is how we did it. And this is the benchmark data to prove it. This is not a unit price estimate. This is a detailed cost estimate based on assumptions and answering questions. Let's go over the estimate. What is model cost estimating? A cost estimator can, at this point, pull information from a database to answer questions specific to the architect's program. The database allows the cost estimator to start at the beginning and drill down to completion with factual cost per each scope of work. Let me show you a couple of slides to see how this works. Our cost estimating is set up by work breakdown structures. Work breakdown structures define the areas of work the cost estimate will be driven by. These are a decomposition of the project into manageable phases. It's a tree structure to show a division of effort required to achieve an objective. For an example, you see bid item, floor, unit number, component, room type, and room number. Our next slide shows a number of models that come from our database that we use for interviews. An interview that we will be looking at is interior walls metal studs. We are looking at a number of areas in an estimate that deal specifically with metal studs. The green arrow shows you this area of the project had some changes and needs to be recalculated. Here we see segment conditions or conditions that you can change, but they're used as work breakdown structures. The pull downs allow us to choose areas that we want to drive our cost estimate to. For example, maybe room use, or room type. We can even put in the project duration in months, which would drive our general conditions. How many miles from the office to the job site? What floor are we working on? What's the distance from floor to floor? What's the size of this floor? During takeoff, estimators can choose from the list of assumptions or questions that would drive cost. For example, the length of the metal studs, height of the wall. What kind of metal studs are we going to use? All what you choose here is all stagnant information. You can copy it for another area. You can change it. You can regenerate the estimate based upon maybe a different height in the wall, or more square footage, or more lineal footage. Here's the drop downs on painting. You can always go back and change an assumption or put in a different quantity, and it would regenerate the estimate based upon what your changes were. The height of sound insulation above the gypboard. Maybe the gypboard only goes to 12 feet. And then you have a drop ceiling at 12 and you go up 14 feet high ceiling. How many layers of gypboard do you have? A lot of information we don't use, but it's there if you need it. Maybe you have interior brick. What kind of wood base are you going to use? Or what kind of base are you going to use? Now, we want to show you how the questions and answers we made in the interview drove the cost to the estimate. So we are going to go back to the interview and change some of our answers to see how easy it is to regenerate the cost to the estimate. The total cost for the stud wall is $6,740, 60 lineal feet. Let's change that to 120 lineal feet. We'll say OK to that. Close. See the little green dot? That means we need to regenerate or generate the estimate again because there's been changes. So we'll just say OK to that. Watch the 6,700 change. 12,383. Okay, I'm going to go back and change it back to 60 lineal feet. Still 14 feet high. The estimate provides totals for a specific scope of work found in the area of work. Remember when we said we calculated the cost, this is how we did it, and this is the benchmark data to prove it? We're going to drill down into the estimate. What we're going to look at is hang drywall. Now, the productivity isn't correct, so don't get too excited about that. We can always go back and change productivity. Labor rate tables, these are made up for the jurisdiction that we're working in. The price per hour for a drywall installer is 83. And let's go grab 2 installers instead of 1. And that's the price per hour, crew hour. We're going to change this to square foot per crew hour. And let's just double the square footage because there's more than one guy. And again, the productivity is not correct, but we could change that. Let me change this back to 1. And the total amount will be changed over on the right hand side. In closing, we received our program from the architect. We applied our interviews and answers and came up with a very precise model cost estimate for his client. We have given the architect the answers to the client's question, how much will it cost me, and can I afford to build this project? For your next project, look to CTN to provide your model cost estimate. We look forward to being on your team.